Whoa, mama. Hello, mates. It's time to be epic. I heard a noise. That was not my imagination. Here we go. Here's everything. Everything except for Strange World, I believe. That's out in theaters right now. It's on the app, but I didn't have to watch it for this list. You know why? Because it's not on the list. I'm not ranking it. It would probably go in the bottom. So I don't know though. I haven't watched it. So okay. So every tier is here. We're gonna make one more. Add a row below. Just for convenience sake. The World War II tier. You ready? Because I didn't watch any of the package films that Disney made in the 40s. They're like little segments, basically. They're not like an overarching story or anything. So I figured, why bother? They're not like held in high regard to begin with. So I figured, why bother? I did own Fun and Fancy Free on VHS. I did watch that once as a kid. That's the one with Bongo the Bear, I think his name was, and the ventriloquist dummy. I have not heard great things about that film, and I don't remember great things about that film, so it was either that film or Make Mine Music. I think it was Make Mine Music that wasn't even on Disney Plus. They removed it because of some things. I don't know. What else? I'm trying to like really grasp at the segments I remember from my childhood, because I know about the Ichabod whole thing. I've watched that before. I know one of these had a Johnny Appleseed segment. There were certain segments from these films that we watched in class for whatever reason in like elementary school and stuff. It was during like music class for some reason. Like, I guess you just had nothing better to do in that class. There was also one about this like railroad dude, like this big strong African American, but I forget what his name is. I thought that was okay. It could be like, I don't even think that's in one of these films. I think that's just like a short that they made later on. It felt old, but it could be new. But yeah, I didn't watch any of these just because I prefer like an actual story. They tried to make it like overarching, but no, not really. They didn't really succeed. One day I'll watch Three Caballeros if I'm ever bored, or Saludos Amigos. I've seen some of the shots in those. They look nice, but it's just the other four I didn't care. Alright, before we actually start, obviously spoilers for every single Disney movie. All these movies, I'm not gonna go super in depth on all of them, but I am gonna reference things in each one, so just keep that in mind. Also, I'll explain what every tier means. So the S tier, these are films I would give 9 or 10. Only a couple films are going to be in the S tier. The A tier is 8. B tier is 7. So A tier is like the best of the best still, like just before S tier. S tier is like classic. So C tier, I'm going to combine the 6s and the 5s for C tier. So if a film ends up really high on the C tier, that means I gave it a strong 6. D tier is 4s, E tier is 3s, and then Fs are 2s and 1s. 2s and 1s. There aren't going to be many films in the F tier. And I'm also going to go in the order that I watched these films. Because, so like I'm not going to start with Snow White and Pinocchio. Instead, I'm going to go just the order I went through. Because I'm different. Alright, we're going to start with, where is it? Finding Nemo. It's in the Pixar, there we go. Finding Nemo, to me, it is a C-tier film. That is like one of the biggest hot takes I'm going to drop tonight. But it's how I feel. Honestly and truly, this film, I gave it a 5 out of 10. Okay? It's undeniably good. Which is why I'm placing it in the B tier to begin with, okay? I really wanted to put it in the C tier just because that's how I honestly feel, okay? But after rewatching the sequel, I was like, okay. Now, this film has a lot of great moments. Why would I put it in the C tier, you may ask? It's because every single character in this film, intentionally or not, is annoying to me. It is one of the most annoying films in the Pixar canon. It's also one of the best in the Pixar canon, undeniably, so that's why I'm putting it in B. I'm conflicted. C for conflicted. It has one of the best soundtracks in Pixar, and the animation is timeless. But the characters are like easily the weakest part. The writing is easily the weakest part. I'm not saying it's incompetent. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying Dory is annoying. Marlin is annoying. Nemo is annoying. Okay, all three leads are equally annoying to me, in my opinion. And one of them is a screaming child. Okay, I get why they're annoying. I get why they're all annoying, okay? These are extreme circumstances. These are all extreme circumstances. Marlin's lost his freaking son, and he's really overprotective. So he's obviously going to have some feelings. Nemo's going to have some feelings, obviously. And Dory, she's Ellen. Of course she's going to be annoying. I understand why they're annoying, but I don't like annoying films. That sounds really weak. It's a 7. I gave it a 7. But in my heart of hearts, it's a 5. So I don't really feel like that's a big hot take. And I'll say this, it feels like a big journey. Marlin travels the ocean for this kid. It makes sense. Alright. Then I watched Ratatouille. The first couple films I watch like once every couple years, or once or twice a year, because they're just that good. Ratatouille is S tier. It's like that sweet spot of Pixar, right? Like it's right in between, where they had enough time to really find their voice as a studio. They had like this pretty much was on like the last legs of like that really good streak they had, right? So it's just like a timeless, it has timeless art direction. I love everything about this film. It is so smart. It doesn't look down on children. It deals with some really heavy shit. Really heavy shit. Ego's review at the end is one of my favorite scenes in any animated film. Any film, period. It's so poignant, and it's really how I feel about art. I have like nothing but good things to say about Ratatouille. It is funny rat movie, but it is also awesome rat movie. Nailed it. Then there's The Incredibles. Guess what? We're gonna get through all the S tier movies all in a row. The Incredibles is S tier. Where is it? The Lion King is S tier, better than Ratatouille. These are the S tier movies, all three of them. I'm not joking. I'm sorry to say, none of these other films come close to importance for me. So let's start with The Incredibles. It's the worst in the S tier because it has aged the worst in terms of look. I'm not saying it looks bad. Some of the shots look really bad. Some of the hair physics, I would say. Just the lighting sometimes, I don't know. It's not a near constant enough for me to really be distracted because it's just still very stylized. They found a way to make it work for the most part. And yeah, this was like constant rotation as a kid. I had it on DVD, so. The amount of stress in some of the Incredibles action scenes is really unmatched. Like, the part where Bob thinks his fucking family died in a plane crash that Syndrome caused. It's like, oh my god. There's little moments like that all throughout it. All these little twists and turns it takes. And it never feels contrived or anything. It's perfect casting all around. Everyone fits their roles perfectly. And then there's The Lion King, which just like eats... What am I talking about? Okay, the first half of The Lion King is a perfect film. It is the only time I could say definitively Disney like made something perfect. The second half of the movie is a 9 out of 10. Alright, so it's like a 9.5, right? Some days I really want to put Ratatouille over Lion King just because it's overall it's more consistent throughout. But I think The Lion King is just like very important to me. I saw this in the theaters when it was re-released in 3D. I probably already saw it already before then, but still, man, like seeing that in the theater, seeing like the title come in. If you've seen The Circle of Life, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah. I think the comic relief is not as strong as in other films. Timon and Pumbaa, bless their hearts, they're trying. They're just... We'll get into it. We'll get into some of the A-tier films and why some aspects of those films are done better in here than this. But not to the point where I'd say it's better than The Lion King. Like there's one you're probably thinking of from the Renaissance already that I'm going to talk about, and how it has better comic relief in that film. It's like a moot point at this, because Timon and Pumbaa, you know, Hakuna Matata is part of the film, bro. Like, of course they have to be there and shit. I'm just saying, like, the bug eating and stuff, it's just very obviously lesser. It's still amazing. I'm very picky about this. It's like, it's still a 9 out of 10 movie in the second half, so. It's the only film on this list where everything about it is iconic, from the soundtrack to the animation to the casting to everything about it. Plus it's 2D, and just the mere fact it exists, it's like handmade. It's like, oh my god. It really is, it is very handmade in comparison to... There's just so much passion and love in this film. You know, I can't get enough of it, really. I'll put it on like any day of the week. Alright, then I watched Frozen because I have cousins. You know what, we're gonna do both. We're gonna do both of these. There we go. Yeah, Frozen's stinky. It's the point where bad writing was rewarded at the studio. I'm not saying it was intentionally poorly written or anything. This thing went through like massive rewrites. That's just what happens when a film is rewritten so much. You just lose the point. There's all this dumb stuff that comes about. Okay, I have like the biggest rant ever that I wrote down for this, because it is baffling the line, "You married a guy you just met?" Oh, you married a guy you just met? Represents a fundamental lack of understanding when it comes to old Disney. I'm talking about the first film, by the way. It's more iconic, right? But it's worse because I'm more frustrated by it than anything. Frozen 2 I could watch without wanting to strangle the screen, if that makes sense. So why doesn't that line work? Why doesn't that line work for me? If you watched any of the old films, the old princess films, besides Sleeping Beauty, we're going to get to Sleeping Beauty, and You Married a Guy You Just Met was your only takeaway, you have no idea what you're criticizing at that point. Because here's the thing, like, you can assume that the length of time spent between a prince and a princess is, like, integral to these films, when in reality it was just poor pacing overall that made these films not really work. The reason they were undeveloped was the length of the film itself, like an hour and 10 minutes, give or take. And the selective nature of what these old farts wanted to focus on. I'm looking at you, Cinderella. The Mouse movie. Okay, it has nothing to do with how many days passed in the text. It's irrelevant, and no one truly knows that. So to sit there and act like you do while ruining your own film by having it serve as the main conflict. The main conflict of this film is that she will marry someone on the first day that they meet them. Okay, Hans, I'm looking at you, buddy. You did it bad. It's the reason everything is happening. That's the thing. I can't stand that. I can't stand contrived reasons for plot stuff to happen. It's so basic and bad. It makes Anna look like a complete dunce. I'm sorry. I just cannot stand the way it parades around thinking it's better than other things that are in the ballpark, sure, but clearly better and more focused. And also, Hans is the worst twist villain you guys ever did. Frozen 2 has better songs. That is the only reason I'm putting it above the original Frozen. But the original Frozen is so much more iconic. Yeah, but it's also more of a watchable film. This one's more watchable. I wasn't physically angry at the screen watching it. But it's still, I'm not giving it praise by any means comparing it to this. They're in the same league. Because this is so unnoteworthy that it's actually kind of insane. Alright, Brother Bear. Brother Bear is better than these two. I had no idea that was Joaquin Phoenix as a kid. I watched it over like a road trip because me and my friends were like traveling across the US. And we saw a lot of bears, so I was in like a bear mood, you know? So I sat down and I put this on for the first time in like 10 years or so, and yeah, it was pretty underwhelming. I wanted to give it a chance, but I barely remember it, so that's all I have to say about that. Okay, Zootopia. Where are you, you little bugger? Zootopia. It's a competent film, okay? It's an important film to me. Basically, it's a quality film, right? It belongs in the B tier. But it's hampered by its own allegory. It wants to have it both ways so badly that it I could see what they were going for, but the end result is just kind of messy. But you know, I love the characters, I love the animation, all that. I just think the writing is... It could have been better, you know? I expect better from Disney. Also, it has a bad twist villain, so... It has the worst twist villain, actually. I think that is the worst twist villain besides Hans. Because they have no... There's no point. There's just no point. It was a dead horse by the time it came out already. This was just a span of 4 years. I think it started with Wreck-It Ralph, so... You know, Wreck-It Ralph had the best twist villain, and this one has the worst, so it only makes sense that they've never done it again. Thank God. Or so you think. There's another film later, I think, we'll talk about. All right, Beauty and the Beast, boys. This is easily A tier. This is my mom's favorite film. I love this film. She took us to see it in the theater for the 3D re-release, and we were like, but we already saw it, Mom. We don't have to go to the theater. And she was like, yeah, I know, but it's my favorite film, so we saw it, and that's just a really important memory. I don't know. But more importantly, the film is expert level musical. Like it's Howard Ashman, rest in power. That's all I got to say. Yeah, best Disney musical by far. And then Aladdin is a very close second. Granted, it's not perfect. If you know, you know. But like here, I would say this film has better comic relief than The Lion King. Okay? Iago and the genie are just better than Timon and Pumbaa. They're funnier. It's not a competition or anything. This film is on par, basically. Undeniably, the best Renaissance films, depending on who you ask. There's a case to be made that that Aladdin is actually garbage. It was garbage the entire time. The characters are undeveloped, or Jafar is a weak villain, blah 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 blah. I acknowledge that there are many things about it that are problematic, but I love the film, so it's not an excuse. I just, I love Aladdin, bro. I love Aladdin. I'll never get tired of it. All right, Tangled. Tangled is B. It's better than Finding Nemo, I think. It's just about better, yeah. Yeah, this is as good as I remember it being. It's really fun. I have a soft spot in my heart for one of the songs. What is it called? I See the Light, I think it's called. So in high school chorus class, one of our most popular gigs besides Christmas caroling was these tea parties, these Disney-themed tea parties with all these little kids and stuff. And I See the Light was like the best song we would always perform, because it was like this duet with, the guy singing one part and the girl singing. It was cute. I liked it. And I have a soft spot for that song in particular. I think the music in this one is a little bit on the side. Mother knows best. I don't even remember how that goes, but yeah. It has like this great fast-paced energy. I don't think this animation's aged the best though. Tangled. Like some of the lighting in certain scenes is a bit iffy by today's standards. You can tell there was a lot of money put into it, but 12 years later, 13 years later, it's not even that distracting, really. It's just, I think it's when they go back to the city while it's daytime, and they don't know she's a princess yet, or the lost princess, and I don't know, that scene just kind of looked off. Also, if a movie has a fake out death, even though they mean well, I'm automatically going to give it less points just because it's such a giant cliche. They used that in the Jungle Book, and that was like in the 60s. They think the character's dead and then he's alive. Oh, original. I don't know. It sounds cynical, but that's how I feel. All right, Treasure Planet. Treasure Planet. C tier. Sorry. I thought this would be better too. It's a famous example of development hell. This movie was like 20 years in the making, I swear. I think Musker and Clements were trying to get it made for so long, and it was just not financially viable even back then. So the protagonist in Treasure Planet is basic as all hell. I wanted to like him, he's a troublemaker, but is there anything more to his character than that? I mean, he has a father figure in the form of, Captain Hook? I don't know. I think that's his name. Even if they nabbed a young Joseph Gordon-Levitt in his prime, I just don't think he does much for me. Some of the designs in Treasure Planet are seriously not my thing. I hate looking at Captain Amelia in particular. It's not a good design. I don't like it. I hate listening to the robot sidekick in the second half. That's the common criticism that I share. But yeah, despite everything going against it, this film remains ambitious. It mixes 2D and 3D surprisingly well, even for the time. Certain shots during some action scenes are like, whoa, man, that's pretty sick. Like absolute eye candy at some points, but if only they belonged in like a better film, a stronger film, you know? All right, whoa, what's next? Hunchback of Notre Dame, Dom McLennan. All right, top of B tier, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So I was convinced when I first saw this, back when it was on Netflix of all things for a short time, that it was the best Disney film ever made. It's up there, definitely up there. Let me just list off what I didn't like, and then you can just assume that I liked everything else, okay? So I'm just going to list off what I didn't like about this film. The gargoyles aren't as bad as they say. It's one of those things where even mentioning that the gargoyles stank is like a cliche on its own. It's just so overdone, but it's true. They're not the strongest aspect of the film. Even though I like Jason Alexander. They did not give him much to work with, though. What else? The boring-ass song in the church. I think it's Esmeralda's song. As well as the Gargoyle song. I just realized that existed. Oh my god, that's so cringe. So 2 of the songs I'm not fans of, but the other songs in Hunchback are amazing. Amazing. Hellfire and The Bells, or whatever. Those are 2 of my favorite Disney songs. Period. Just the way they mixed the visuals with the actual music is so creative. I gotta say, the opening to this film is one of my favorites in Disney. It is so swift and uncompromising that it's hard to believe in a good way. There's also the Romanian slur and sexualization of Esmeralda. Big yikes. Honestly. No, thank you. Don't go to Romania and watch this film. You will be arrested. What else? The cartoon sound effects in that scene in the parade. Some of the sound effects in general are just very goofy and don't fit the tone that's going for. Yeah, there's a bit of a tone problem. Oh, also, some of the background characters in the parade are very clearly 3D models, like early 3D models. And it's uncanny when you spot them, because you're just kind of bored. You're just kind of drifting off, your eyes are drifting off, and you notice these like low poly frame rate nightmares just like cheering. It's like, oh god, why are they here? Why are they mixed in with this beautiful 2D animation? It's not anything major, it's just something you notice, and you can't unnotice, so it just affects the film. It's really funny thinking back. Okay, but apart from all that, it may as well be Disney's best film, so... It's a B tier, baby. That means I liked it very much. Meet the Robinsons. Yo, are you guys ready? A tier. A tier for Meet the Robinsons. I'm not joking. This is not me being facetious. I'm being 100% serious. This goes so hard in the paint. It's probably the movie I've watched the most, along with the Simpsons movie. Both of them just have really fast-paced humor. The kind I really loved as a kid and still do now. It's very juvenile, I understand, but shush. I grew up with this movie so much that I cannot let go of my immense love for it, even today. And yeah, I said the Simpsons movie, that's right. I had both of these on DVD. I just played the shit out of both of them. The only major thing going against this film is how cheesy it tries to be. Or not cheesy, it is cheesy. It tries to be very wholesome. It ends up being kind of milquetoast. Me and my brother have this running joke where if a song tries really hard to sound futuristic, we'll just point to how this film portrays this bright and happy vibe without a care in the world, my guy. I love all the banter between the characters. The bowler hat guy is easily one of the most underrated Disney villains. It has this campy Saturday morning cartoon vibe in regards to how the Robinson family is introduced. They're all pretty basic, right? And I wish it was a cartoon. I do wish it was a cartoon. But it still feels feature length. Like, they're not the focus, really. Lots of cool twists and turns towards the end, too. I'm aware that I'm biased, but I'm also correct, so in my mind. Alright, Great Mouse Detective. It's also a good movie. Where would I put this? I'm gonna put it above Finding Nemo and Tangled, actually. I'm gonna put it above those two. That sounds right. I don't know, I never saw this as a kid. I wish I did. It's really good. It's hard to really talk about because it's just Sherlock Holmes, but they're mice. I'm glad I finally did, though. It's Sherlock Holmes' mice. What's not to love? What's not to love, honestly? Vincent Price as Ratigan and the Big Bang sequence really elevate what should have been an alright movie. This was probably going to go in the C tier, if not for those two things. The CGI still looks great, even to this day, in that one sequence. And yeah, it's Sherlock Holmes. That's really all I have to say. It's just good, you know? Lilo and Stitch. Will Smith's Hitch. Because it's really good. I forgot how good this was, how great this was. I was reluctant to return to this after so many years because I remembered Lilo being just the most insufferable character of all time. I remember that. As a kid, I didn't like Lilo. But now I know why she's like that. The family drama in this story is just giving me chills thinking about it again. You don't have to share their experience to be affected deep down by these unfortunate circumstances of these characters. A film that achieves that feeling of just like, oh my god, is among Disney's best, hands down. It's rare for them to treat such a heavy subject with such tact and respect. It's rare. And that's not the only thing about this film that I like. Stitch is really cute. I love watching him integrate into this family. It's really adorable. Ohana means family, bro. Need I say more? There are only a couple minor gripes I have with this film, really. Like, Stitch doesn't look like a dog. I know that's the joke, but how was he sold to this child? I don't understand. Also, everyone shows up on the beach at the end, like the agent, Nani, etc. All of them know where the ship is going to crash land. I don't know, just stuff like that. I just noticed in the moment. I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of dumb. But no, really, this is one of the best Disney films, period. Better than some Pixar films that are beloved, so we're going to get into that whole thing. Alright, Little Mermaid. I'm putting it at the top of C tier. Doesn't mean it's bad. It means I gave it a strong 6 out of 10. Okay, I really liked this film, for the most part. It's not a C tier film, dude. Guys, I was looking at the taskbar endlessly during the second half. Okay, I wanted it to be over so much when Ariel was on the surface. It's not to say it was bad or anything. It was never truly bad, that's the thing. I was just so bored out of my mind at points. But I liked it overall. I only had to watch it once as a kid on VHS when I was younger for most of it to resonate with me. It's better than most Disney films. Mulan. Then I watched Mulan. I'll put it over Treasure Planet. I'll watch it over Treasure Planet any day, but Okay, I'm gonna be real. I'm not a big fan of Mulan. I hate that 90s trope of, oh, she's clumsy. It's like, can you try harder, please? That's not all to her character, to be frank, but I have never been a fan of how this was written, okay? It's just not my favorite Renaissance film by any means. It's not the worst one, but it's not one of my favorites. You know, I Mushu, right? Eddie Murphy never sounds angry with Mushu. Like, there's a lot of scenes where Mushu's angry, but Eddie Murphy just sounds like he's smiling the whole time. It's weird. Like, I like how he looks. I like looking at him. He's cute, but wisecracking sidekick was just a checklist at that point in the Renaissance era. It was like just a thing they had to check off. So it's not natural, is what I'm saying. It just feels like he has to be there because it's one of those things where there are things to love about it. The music especially, the animation especially, okay? I love those two aspects very much. To some extent, I even like the story, like where it goes. You know, the Hans battle and stuff. But there's an equal amount of things to dislike. Especially the characters. I really did not vibe with the characters very much. Like the soldiers. I just have nothing to say, really. I'm really trying to think. Of what this film does that stands out. It's better than the remake. The remake isn't an atrocity. This isn't an atrocity or anything. Alright, Tarzan. Then I watched Tarzan. I wanted to get all of the Renaissance films out of the way. So I watched Tarzan. I liked it. I really did like this film. Trying to figure out where to put it. Over Great Mouse Detective. This is like a technical marvel right here. It's so good. It looks so cool. It's so clean. The implementation of 2D into a 3D space is incredible. No pun intended. People have the right to call it basic and everything, which it is in some aspects. But I'm not going to do that because I thoroughly enjoyed watching this after returning to it for so long, so that did not happen with most films in the Disney canon. And then I watched Emperor's New Groove, which just eats all over... What am I saying eats? It walks all over the last film we just talked about. Okay, I used to consider this worthy of S tier, right? Right, it's one of the best Disney... No. I'm not saying it's bad. I actually like most of everything in this film. But the amount of trailer humor, and he's right behind me, isn't he humor? You know what I'm talking about, is a major turn off to me now. Not major enough to really warrant calling it, you know, horrible or anything. I really do like this film. I really do. I still love every single character in this movie, and most of the other jokes hit just as hard as they first did when I first saw them. So many classic lines. Pull the lever, Crunk. It looks really stylish too, I gotta give it credit. Rest in power, Eartha Kitt, one of my favorite voice actresses. Yzma is up there with Ratigan and Hades. Speaking of Hades, Hercules, top of C tier. I like it more than Little Mermaid. We're gonna get to you. Yeah. Yzma, Ratigan, and Hades are my top 3 Disney villains. Yzma is just the right amount of threatening and funny to be lovable. So, yeah, I think that's everything I have to say about that masterpiece. Alright. Hercules. Did I write anything about Hercules? Yeah. Alright, everyone has at least one Disney film they had on repeat as a kid. This was mine. This one right here. I don't know how much I watched it on VHS. I know it was a couple times, but man, the impression this left on me is immeasurable. Like, it's so iconic. I love the art direction in this film. Gerald Scarfe, I believe. Why is it in the top of C tier, you may ask? It's because I am painfully aware of its flaws to the point where I cannot call it a B tier. The major flaw being Hercules himself being such a blank state. Okay? Sorry, not blank state. Blank slate of a character. Okay? I don't know what he wants. I don't know what he desires. I don't know anything about him besides he wants to be a hero. There's nothing to him. Okay, I don't care what he does. I don't care what he says. I don't care about him. I kind of have to care about the protagonist. It's kind of a main deal. Main thing. I don't fucking... It's not bad. To be honest, this is like an S tier for me personally, but I can't put it above CT. That would just be doing a disservice to all these films that I know are not flawed to the core. Hercules is the best C tier film. At least I hope so. I think so. All right. Then I felt really bad about myself and watched Oliver and Company to make myself feel even worse. Easily the worst film we've talked about so far. Finally, a god-awful film for me to talk about that I can honestly say, like, drained me. I've never watched or read Oliver Twist. I know the basic summary, but I imagine it's not as bad as Oliver and Company. The plot happens around this kitty, this Oliver fellow. He is a nothing character with no motivation or personality other than he's a stray, which is like the beginning portion, and it's all explained by Huey Lewis in the news, which is always a pleasant surprise. But no, I really don't care about any of these characters at all in this film. It's that style of 80s kids writing where you can just it's not The Little Mermaid, right? The Little Mermaid is in its own writing style. This and another film we're gonna get to, it's just so like 80s and early 90s that it hurts. It hurts the film. It just kind of plods along, really. The only good thing I can say is that it looks nice, okay? New York City looks nice in this film. It's not completely accurate, but I'll take it. I'll take the setting. It's fine. But like most 80s animated films, it's painfully forgettable and boring, so I really cannot stress how forgettable this is. I barely remember anything besides maybe like the death of the villain or whatever. I don't care. Then I wanted to feel even worse, so I put on Pocahontas for the first time in my life. I've never watched this film in my life. It's really fitting that I own this on VHS as a child. I would see it all the time on the shelf. You know, just it wouldn't even tempt me to watch it. Like, I had no interest in watching it as a kid. It looks like I made the right choice. You know? This is a cultural atrocity that should have never happened. It should have never happened. It should have never existed. If you know, you know. Yeah, that's all I have to say about this. Even though Colors of the Wind slaps. Okay, Colors of the Wind is good. But that's the only good thing about this film. Chicken Little, I was just like on a marathon of okay, let's get all the bad films I know are going to be bad out of the way. Here we go, here's Chicken Little. At this point, I was just ripping off the band-aids, yeah. This looks like ass. Everyone knows it looks like ass. It's not really a new thing to say. It assumes that all children are brain dead, with no concept of good taste. I hate films like that. It's insulting. If there is something I do enjoy about this, it has nothing to do with the text of the film, okay? It has entirely to do with the era that it was released in, okay? Mid-2000s. Chicken Little is really the last time Disney as a company was truly failing, like on all grounds. I'm not saying this wasn't a blockbuster or anything. It made money, it made bank. I'm just saying, by the looks of it, Disney was in a really rough spot in the mid-2000s. They didn't know what to do. It's just what it represents in the grand scheme, right? Obviously a response to DreamWorks, who was dominating animated films at this point, even though not all their films, you know, Sinbad and all the 2D stuff was not performing as well. I'm just saying, out of complete desperation, this film is a product of desperation, by the way, Disney stooped to their level of pop culture references and ugly animation. It's basically Shark Tale, this fucking movie. And in our current hell world, our current media hellscape, it's really comforting to know that this exists. It's really, really comforting to know it exists. I'm glad that it exists. I'm glad that Disney was willing to embarrass themselves like this. It's so rare nowadays. I mean, they do it all the time with the live-action remakes and whatnot, but everyone has something to say about those. You know, Chicken Little is just like, where do you even start? Alright, Rescuers Down Under. It's also an E tier, but it's better than Oliver and Company. Okay, it has the scene in it, I know. It has the eagle scene. That's a scene that I've always loved. You know, I watched this a couple times as a kid. I thought I liked this film for all the way through, but it turns out, no, I really just liked the eagle scene. Okay. So this is what I'm talking about. This and Oliver and Company are written the same way. It's very early 90s. You can almost imagine Doug Walker in the background riffing on it. You can imagine him riffing on this. You can imagine him riffing on this. It's like Tom and Jerry the movie, right? That's one of his biggest reviews. These are in the same camp of like 80s, 90s. Now you see what I mean, right? So, I don't know. The Rescuers is a bad franchise because the premise itself is always bad. It's guaranteed to be bad. The protagonists are just going to show up in the last 10 minutes and let the villain do whatever he wants to the poor kid. Obviously, the poor kid learns something, you know, how to escape, but still, Jesus. Sorry, I prefer my characters to be a little more involved in the story instead of playing catch-up. It's so tedious to watch. It also commits the heinous sin of writing unfunny jokes for the late John Candy. Disgraceful. Alright. Atlantis. Squarepantis. Boom. No one's made that joke before. I'm gonna put it above Zootopia. That's my definitive opinion. So the term pleasantly surprised applies most to this film. It's not one that I grew up with or anything. It's a first time watch, but I liked it overall, you know? It's nice. It's one of those films where you see Joss Whedon's name in the credits and go, oh, that makes so much sense. This is a Joss Whedon film. That being said, it's just kind of uneven at points. Like, it doesn't go quite far enough, you know? It's one of those rare films that... Oh my god. The attempts at comic relief in this film are also... They're also just as bad as Treasure Planet's. Like, what is it? The Mole Man in Atlantis? I don't like hearing him talk. I don't like him in the slightest. There's also like this lunch lady, old lady. I don't know. I don't even remember half the other characters in this film. I'm kind of ragging on every film Like, I'm just mentioning the flaws of each film, right? But that's because I just don't feel like saying, you know, this film is good, this film is also good, this film's like, I want to get into why. I want to assume that like everything I don't say is just good, right? So like I like the animation in this film. I just think the story is really lacking. That's really the only thing about Atlantis. I didn't write much for it, so it could have been better. Home on the Range. Let's see. Yeah, this is E tier. Fuck this movie. This movie stinks to high heaven. It's better than Oliver and Company, though. I would rather watch Home on the Range than Oliver and Company. It's really that bad. All right. Yeah, this is the first film on the list I can comfortably call lame. So this is the first film on the list I can comfortably call lame. Let's just read that again. It barely resonates with me, even after rewatching it for this ranking. Like, the whole ordeal feels so low stakes. It's a save the rec center plot that's been done a million times before. Such a cliched premise, I swear to God. It's not even funny, it's not insightful, it's just boring. It's hard to care for anything. It's a baby movie for babies. Home on the Range. Roseanne Barr is a cow, fuck you. Dinosaur. Then I watched Dinosaur. This is like the final boss of like, oh my God, you have to stop. You have to stop watching these awful movies. I got these out of the way very quickly because I knew I wasn't gonna make it if I didn't just go all in. This is the only film on the list I rated a 1 out of 10. It's that bad. Chicken Little is, you know, 2. Twice as good as Dinosaur. Boom. Roasted. I have no idea how I got to the end of this film without tapping out. But I did, and it was excruciatingly painful. It's one of those movies, you point to it and say everything is wrong with it. That's all I can really sum up. I'm really struggling to think of anything to say about Dinosaur. It's so boring and lame. How do you make dinosaurs lame? How do you do that? Alright, Fox and the Hound. People are gonna get mad. People are gonna be mad. Where do I put it in the D tier? I'll put it over Frozen. It's more competent than for freaking Frozen. Okay, look, I know what I'm doing here, but try to watch the first half of this film again. I shouldn't even say first half. Like, the first 20 minutes, the first 30 minutes of this film. Try to watch it again without wanting to do anything else. Okay, did you remember there's comic relief in this film? Yeah. These two birds are trying to catch a worm. That's like 10 minutes of the film. Boom. I care so much about these characters. Instead of devoting the recommended amount of time to the actual relationship, you know, it's not all bad. I'm not saying it's all bad or anything. The pacing in the first half, though, it's so incredibly dull. I'm also not a fan of the girlfriend at the end, really. It's one of those movies where things just happen. It succeeds in what it's trying to do, but just not in the best way. Not in the most desirable way. There are things I would have changed. There's a character that, you know, gets injured, but they should have died. I don't know. just stuff like that. It would have been helpful. You know, there's no reason for them to live. I sound really mean. These are animals we're talking about. I'm talking about a story standpoint. From a story standpoint, it just makes no sense. I'm being incredibly vague because I don't want the magic to be lost on people when they inevitably rewatch it, like I did. However, there is a scene in Fox and the Hound that made me cry the hardest. Okay, this film is notorious for making people cry, and I fell for it. Okay, it gave me an extreme emotion that most of these other films did not. It's when Todd's owner lets him go into the wild. That scene made me bawl my eyes out. Okay, so this film does have heart. It's well intentioned. I just don't really find the entire film to be even remotely worthy of C tier. No, it's fine. I'm not gonna watch it again though, to be honest. But then I watched WALL-E. I was like, okay, I need some Pixar in my life. So I watched WALL-E. It's right underneath. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. I'm genuinely glad this film exists. Very glad this film exists. It serves as a reminder of what the world will become if things continue. WALL-E's a very important film. It has a lot to say. It's also very creative. It's also one of the greatest love stories ever put to film, so there's that too. And yeah, most of you have seen that one, so you know how great it is. The Black Cauldron is a bad film for baby... No, I'm not saying that. It's a bad film, for sure. I didn't hate it as much as I could have, because I was always expecting something to happen, something cool to happen. Obviously nothing did, but still, I had my hopes up. This was the most expensive film ever made at the time, and they have something to show for it, for sure. It does fail at just about everything it tries, though. I'm not gonna lie. It's very lame. It's kind of aimless. Things just happen. It's one of those films where things just happen because it's an older film. Blah blah blah. I shouldn't be mean. I was rarely ever bored with Black Cauldron. You know, all the dumb plot holes didn't really impede while I was watching it. But looking back after it, yeah, it's dumb. Shout out to Creeper. He's the best character, and every scene he's in is actually pretty fun. I like watching him like laugh and bounce. It's funny. Every scene with him is just pure gold. But yeah, just don't watch this, please. You'll think it's really great, but it's not. I do have fond memories of playing it one time as a kid at a VHS. I had a lot of VHSs, let me just say. I miss having those VHSs and having access to a VHS player. So nostalgic, you know? I can't believe I ever had the privilege. Okay, I'm getting off topic. But yeah, my parents collected a lot of Disney VHSs, and that's how I was exposed to like Little Mermaid and what else? Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin had those. And lots of others I'm gonna get to. But yeah. Also has the worst sidekick of all time. His name's Gurgi, and he stinks. Not in the good way. Alright, Bolt. Very, very meh. It's notorious for being kind of meh. It's better than Mulan. I still think it's better than Mulan. I would rather watch it than Mulan. I grew up with it more than Mulan. I think that's really the only reason. Okay, it gets a bad rap for being basic, right? At best, it is very cozy, very comfortable. And at worst, it's kind of, yeah, really basic. It's one that they played a lot on Disney Channel as a kid. It's a road trip movie. It's not what you expect it to be. While also being the most formulaic bullshit ever. Ugh. Yeah, this is perfect, like 5 out of 10. I'm conflicted. C for conflicted, everybody. That's the moral of this story. I still think that scene at the pound is very funny. I remember catching it as a sneak peek and being like, huh, I should watch that, and I never went to see it in theaters. I only remember the sneak peek. And then it was on Disney Channel, and boom. But yeah, it's a road trip movie, and I like road trip movies. They're cozy. They're comfy. I will say, one thing I noticed on rewatch is, you know, the TV show that Bolt's on or whatever? The action thing. It still looks really cool, by the way. Those are some of my favorite scenes. They don't film it like a normal TV show in this universe. They do everything in one take. So, basically, if there's one mistake in this film, if they're filming a TV episode and there's one mistake, if the dog doesn't jump into the basically the whole studio burns down because the dog didn't do what it was supposed to, and that's the conflict at the end. No, that's the... Oh, it's so stupid when you think about it. It's like, just say cut and do another take. Why did this have to happen? It's so silly, but I laughed noticing it. It's funny. Because there's like these torches, these lit torches, and one of them falls over and just starts burning everything. It's so... ugh. Also, the hamster in this film is very annoying. He overuses the word awesome. And it's funny because he said awesome. He's like Jack Black, but we couldn't get Jack Black. So we have him. If I were ranking characters in animated films that were voiced by like actual animators in the studio, Peter San from Ratatouille would be on the top. Who else? Who else am I thinking of? He would be in the bottom. It's another Pixar film. I'll think about it. I'll remember it. But yeah, Bolt is meh. Princess and the Frog. These two are like interlinked. They are the culmination of just pure mediocrity. I actually think this one is worse than Bolt, and I'm going to explain why. Okay? It's not bad by any means, but it's so not perfect. First off, I do not believe the romance between Tiana and Naveen, Prince Naveen. When she says "I love you," I don't believe it. It's like it comes out of it doesn't come out of nowhere. You know, they do stuff. They talk a couple times, but that's about it. You know, they have something in common. They were both turned into frogs. They also have another thing in common, I forgot. It also follows in the tradition of the first black lead in a Disney film turning into an animal or a blob to learn a lesson. It's awesome. It completely ignores Jim Crow laws in 1920s Louisiana, which is comical. If it wasn't so... It would be comical if it wasn't so, like, oh my god, Disney, please, no. However, there are major positives to this film. I love the animation, I love how it looks, I love the songs, I love the music, I love the villain. He's fun. His death is fun. I like his villain death. And Big Croc, named Louie. That's also a big positive. Wreck-It Ralph. I'm going to put it above Zootopia. I'm going to put it above this. It's right underneath Little Mermaid. Definitely. I've always loved and appreciated this film, even though I would not put it in B tier. There's just a lot of movies like that. I like it, but it's not quality, you know? It's not consistently throughout, okay? It's brimming with original ideas, okay? I love the original games they make up. I love every character in this movie. It's perfect casting all around, really, for the leads. The only things that are keeping it from B tier are like the commercial stuff. Like, it uses a Rihanna song during a montage. The worst Rihanna song, in my opinion, Shut Up and Drive. That did not need to be there. It could have just been like a normal no. It's really bad and noticeable, and it's really the first time where the fact that Disney is this mega corporation infiltrates the text of the film itself. So, for example, there's this scene in the Candy World, the Candy video game, where Ralph is hiding from the other characters. He's in a chocolate lagoon. He has a straw, and they overlay the Darth Vader breathing sound effects in this scene. Like, is that supposed to be a joke? Well, why is that there? That's not how breathing would sound like from a straw to begin with. It's one of those things where you could have just left it out. That is terrifying to me, like in an existential way, just knowing that Disney would do that. I'm not saying you can't have like video game characters in a video game movie or whatever. You know, me likey Sonic. Me likey the ghost from Pac-Man. Stupid. I like it when Bowser shoot the fire. No. I'm not saying that. That's actually very well integrated into the film. I like the inclusion of Tapper as well. It's just something I noticed on rewatch. It just kept me from, you know, putting it a little bit higher. Then I watched The Rescuers. Bottom of E tier. There's nothing to say about this film. Milk Call's animation on the villain is top notch, but that's about it. Nothing about this film stuck out to me. It's very... Oh my god, I don't even know how very it is. I think it's just nothing, really. To me. Stuff happens, but, like... You expect me to remember all that? If a movie is boring enough, I'll just forget it. Prime example right here. Alright, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. It's going in C tier. I liked it. I liked this film a lot. It's going under Zootopia. That's fine. I was pleasantly surprised by this as well. It's not one I'm going to return to anytime soon. Probably never, but it's classic Pooh. It's certainly the most tolerable version of these characters because everything else appeals to like tiny babies and toddlers exclusively. So it's good to know that there's like some quality material out there. It's an anthology, so it never feels... It feels like stories, right? Separate stories. That's something I've always appreciated. Doesn't spend too much time on one idea, unlike this film, which we'll get to. But yeah, it's nice. It's cute. Monsters, Inc. Where's that? It's somewhere. There it is. Right underneath WALL-E. Yeah. Mike and Sully have the best dynamic in all of Pixar. Easily. Perfect casting all around. Every story beat is iconic and it's still really funny. Still really funny. The animation's not the best or anything. I think the character movement in particular is a little bit stiff by today's standards. It's just something you notice. But the intent is always there, you know, regardless. The hair physics still look great. For the time. Really one of my go-tos for like character design. Like it you can look at any character in this film and know exactly what their deal is, you know? It's rare to find that in like most films, most animated films. And of course, you know, the final scene with Boo, you know, that is the only other film besides Fox and the Hound that made me bawl my eyes out as like a little kid. You know, you really understand, you really connect with these characters as you grow up. And unlike this one, I rewatched this sad scene again just to be like, oh, let's see. This one, every time I watch it, every time I watch that scene, I'm going to bawl, no matter what. So, but yeah, everything about this film is great. Really nothing too bad. I don't know. All right, here we go. Robin Hood. Robin Hood. It's going at the bottom of C tier for now. There's going to be a couple other ones. All right, I've heard good things about Robin Hood. I think people really enjoy this film overall. But I don't get it. I really didn't get much out of Robin Hood, to be honest. The mere fact that this recycles animation from like one film ago, the previous two films, is enough to lose serious points for me. Okay, I take that seriously for no reason. But it's more than just that. It feels like a Saturday morning cartoon. The ending is also really boring, so yeah, I didn't really gain much from it, so it's better than all these films, but not by much. Alice Goes to Memphis, Tennessee. Shout out to Mary Blair for designing my favorite old Disney flick. This is so great throughout. It does a wonderful job at adapting the source material, even if some don't think so. It's the kind of film that benefits from not focusing on anything for too long. That was the entire point, which is what Disney was best at back then. There's so many iconic shots, moments, and scenes. It's hard to even keep track. It's just iconic throughout. It's impossible not to love, in my opinion. Again, I only had to watch it once as a kid to really like resonate with it, to really like memorize everything. It's that iconic. Peter Pan went to Stanistan. It's a B tier. Definitely. It is one of the most solid Disney films, period. Besides the obvious. Okay, this and Alice are easily tied with one another for like old Disney. Right? That was like the primo shit. If it didn't devote so much time to bashing Indians, bashing Native Americans, this would be an A tier easily. I love Peter Pan. I love the comedic dynamic between Captain Hook and Smee. It's still really funny watching them banter. Tinkerbell being so mean is actually like a really big standout to me in like a not necessarily good way, but it stands out regardless. And the animation obviously still holds up. It's a thoroughly enjoyable watch, even if I'm kind of ashamed to admit that with how problematic it is. It's really bad. Like as a kid, I knew it was there. I knew it was there. I knew it was bad. Maybe not as bad as... I didn't know it was bad in that way. I just knew it was like... It took too much time in the film. Like, stop. Why even have this at all? I want to choose my words very carefully there. All I know is that I thought it was like maybe one scene or two, but no, they devote an entire song about it, so it's really bad. But I still love the actual film. Outside of that, I think it really did affect its rating. From an 8 to a 7, it went, so... But yeah, watch Peter Pan again. It's better than you remember. Cinderella. This movie is boring as sin. I never want to watch it again. Cinderella is my least favorite Disney princess film, purely because of how much it focuses on the mice, and maybe like 3 to 5 minutes on the actual relationship between the prince and the princess. The people on the poster. How do you expect me to care about this protagonist if all I know is that they're, you know, abused abused by their mother, whatever, and sisters. Despite how much I hate this, there's undeniably some classic things about it. You know, bippity boppity boo, the shoe fitting stuff, you know, all that. There's stuff I like about this film, believe it or not. I like how it looks. I like the framing of scenes, you know. It looks nice. But an older film lives or dies by its pacing. And this is a prime example of that. It's just so unwatchably... It's so unwatchable. This made me stop marathoning any of these films for a month straight. That's how bad it was. I was like, oh my god, I can't take this. Because here's the thing. Disney Plus doesn't have a picture-in-picture mode like most other streaming apps. So you can't like have it on the background while you're surfing whatever other apps. You know, if you ever get bored, you have to sit down and actually watch it. So Cinderella was like the most patience-testing thing ever. I was like, fuck it, I'm out. For a while, and then I came back. I came back with 101 Dalmatians. And what can I say? I mean, it's a doggy movie, so obviously S tier all the way. Doggies are fun and epic. My people are important. No. It's C tier, I like it. Should I place it above Zootopia? No. It's right underneath. Besides the really one boring scene in the middle, it's a delightful little film with a great art style and a villain. My favorite scene is when they're playing piano upstairs while Cruella is actually visiting. They're like mocking her as she's in the room. It's funny. It makes me wish the actual owners were more involved in the story. That's one of the only big things besides the obvious 10-minute dog calling scene. It's just boring. But apart from that, I really do like this film. It was sweet. Sleeping Beauty. It's going in B tier. I'm gonna put it above Peter Pan, actually. You know what? No. I don't think it quite matches up. You really do feel the widescreen aspect ratio in Sleeping Beauty. It's where it zooms out and it's like, oh my god, this is a feature-length movie we're talking about. Mwah, mwah, you know? I'm not gonna pretend the story is groundbreaking or anything, or that the prince and the princess don't actually first meet on the first day and want to marry the same day. You know, that actually happens in the film. I'm not denying that. But all of that is overshadowed by some of the best art direction in any Disney film, before or since. This film looks stunning. And Maleficent, obviously. I wish she was in the film more, but honestly, when she is in the film, it's like, oh my god. The dragon fight alone is enough to make up for that, in my opinion. And yeah, for good reason. The dragon fight elevates this to B tier for me. I also, even though they're all kind of unlikable, I appreciate that this film is actually about the 3 godmothers or whatever. It's nice. But yeah, Aurora has no personality whatsoever. That's just because she's barely in it. Alright, Aristocats. This film fucking blows. The premise is ridiculous, but not ridiculous enough to be remotely interesting. Or good, for that matter. Thomas O'Malley's design is cute, but he just waltzes into the story and immediately professes his love to this Eve Gabor. Is it Eva Gabor? The female cat, whatever. His first scene, right? There's lazy storytelling and then there's no storytelling. This film has no storytelling. Hey, how about instead of developing any of these characters, we devote 5 minutes to a drunk goose uncle or whatever, that drunk goose uncle, or 10 minutes on the butler trying to get his hat back from these 2 junkyard dogs in 2 separate scenes of Looney Tunes shenanigans, right? Like that's surely the best way to approach this story of these rich cats trying to find their way back home. Oh wow, they're trying to find their way back home. You don't say, Disney. Really groundbreaking stuff there. Really breaking new ground. Fuck out of here. This film infuriates me. If I were making a tier list of like films I would strangle, this would be number 1 easily. This and Frozen and I don't know, one other film. The best scene in this movie features the best scene in this movie features a racist stereotype, and you're expecting it the whole time. So like, what's the point? F tier. Fuck you. The Jungle Book. The Jungle Book. It's going in B tier. I like this film. Easily the best soundtrack of its era. Easily the best animation of its era. It's good. But, you know, it would be in C tier if it wasn't for those 2 things. Honestly. This was Milk Call in his prime. He really did a good job. The whole head swivel thing. It's kind of a meme now, but like back then, it was legit, bro. Shere Khan's head swivel. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, this was Disney in their prime. I wish it continued from here. Obviously, you know, the death of Disney himself is going to affect the company from here on out. But yeah, despite how much I unabashedly love so much about this film, I feel like the only way I could get through it to begin with was to have it on while I was eating or something. Like, the story was very clearly dragging in spots, and the final battle with Shere Khan is a bit anticlimactic as well. The very ending is actually my least favorite thing about it. Like, okay, the vultures come, they're the Beatles for some reason, then there's the fake out death, with, you know, they think Baloo is dead and then he's not dead, haha, JK. Lol. And then Mowgli instantly falling in love with the girl in the man village. Why is it called a man village? Anyway, that's all it really took. Like, you could have built on that a little bit more in the actual story. There's definite flaws, but I don't care. I love looking at it. I love listening to it. All the stuff in the actual jungle when he meets Baloo and stuff, you know, it's great. Then there's Lady and the Tramp. Yeah, this is garbage. Garbage. Actually, it's a doggy movie, so S tier, right? Yeah. Bafflingly bad. It's kind of a cliche now to say that nothing happens, right? The characters have no personality. I mean, they do, but I didn't really. I cannot with this film. This film. It eats away at my brain. It eats away. It is one of the few films that has angered me, like bitterly. I might add. Look up the very final scene of this movie, like the very final scene, the very final line, and tell me that isn't the weirdest, worst line to end off something like this. Okay? That scene pretty much represents how aimless this film is. It doesn't know what it wants to do. It just does for whatever reason. I can't explain how much I hate this without like having to rewatch it and then immediately write down. It's so forgettable and bland. And yeah, there's a spaghetti scene in it, right? That's not enough though. You gotta have more. I'm not opposed to films where the characters are just kind of hanging around, but like, man, nothing happens. I swear to God, it's embarrassing. All right, then I got Bambi out of the way. I've always liked this film. I've always respected this film. I'm gonna give it. It's actually better than Tangled and Finding Nemo. I'm not gonna be all like, nature, man, you know? But the vibe of this is just so incredibly serene and beautiful. It takes its time, but it takes its time for a reason. One thing that stood out to me after revisiting it was the Little April Shower sequence. It's like this thunderstorm song, and oh my god, it's so underrated. I love the music shifts in that one. It's very, very, it's worth looking up, seriously. It's an achievement. Of course, Bambi's mom's death is one of the all-time great switcheroos of all time, where suddenly it's not just a kid's film anymore. I don't think it ever was, but still. It's like, damn, they really did that. They really went there. The only truly bad scene involves the girlfriends at the end. It shares the same thing with Box and the Hound, where all three characters, right? They have to do the exact same thing. They have to notice the girl. They have to be like, oh, who is this? I think I'm in love, and then they do that 3 times. It's like 5 minutes, and once it happens the first time, you know how the other two are going to do it, and it's just so boring. You know, except for Bambi, who's very shy in this film, which I can relate. It's simple, but it's effective. I am losing my voice, by the way. Pinocchio. Here we go. Another B tier. Just as... These two are on the same quality, basically. There's so much character, life, and personality in Pinocchio compared to Snow White. Actually, where did I write Snow White? Okay. We're gonna get to Snow White then, I guess. Yeah, goddamn, dude. Pinocchio. This is really their first film. Like, this has so much charm and personality and all that. It's actually kind of ridiculous, you know? Like, this is their second film. They only just started. There's a lot that happens in this film. And it's all great. All of it's great. There's only a few things that stick out. particularly for when they're searching for Geppetto underwater. That scene goes on longer than it should have, in my opinion. And of course, Jiminy Cricket. Okay, Jiminy Cricket is a demonstrably bad conscience in this film. He could be doing worse, for sure, but he's so ineffective, just wandering off and having to chase down Pinocchio 2 times in a row. But yeah, that's not a bad thing necessarily. It's conflict, you know? You need character flaws to tell an interesting story. Like, Woody can be kind of a jerk, right? That doesn't mean, you know, he acts out selfishly, but am I really going to sit here and pretend Toy Story isn't a classic film? No. So this was around, like, Christmas. I'm talking about last month, where I felt like binging some Pixar over the holidays. I associate this franchise with ABC Family's 25 Days of Christmas, if that makes sense. I mean, ABC is owned by Disney, so that makes... Sure, it looks worse than the sequel, but the humor is better. So let me get Toy Story 2 up here. They're on the same plane. These two are as good as each other. They're both 8s. So this is great in just about every way. It expands, you know, the lore a little bit of Woody and all that. The Prospector and the TV show and the merchandise. The merchandise. That's always really stuck out to me as like the defining part of this film. But yeah, the humor is a noticeable downgrade compared to the first. There's a lot of reliance on puns and references. So, like, of course, you have Star Wars, the whole Zurg thing going on. You're not my father, and then he turns out to be, oh, he's a nice guy, haha. He plays catch with his son. You know, that's funny. I like that. But what else? Like in the first film, right? You would notice a board game in the background. I forget which board game it was, but it was in the first couple minutes, and you'd be like, oh, okay, you didn't have to be talked down to or anything. I just prefer this film. It has a lot more. It's a lot more classic, in my opinion. Even though the sequel is on par. Okay, they made this in 9 months. That's the thing. They made this in 9 months, and it's still leagues ahead of most animated films today in terms of creativity and likability. Okay, Toy Story 2 is a rare fucking sequel. Where is Snow White? In my notes. Because I did write something for it. Okay, it's later on. That's why. Okay, Up. Up, more like PU, am I right? It's better than Tarzan. For sure. So this film obviously peaks during the opening. The main drawback for me is a lot of the trailer humor involving dogs. I know, that's sacrilege coming from me, but really, was Squirrel ever funny? Squirrel was never funny. It's trailer humor, that's all I can say. Every bad thing about this film involves dogs, unfortunately. I wanted to put this in A tier because of the climax, like the final action scene. I swear to God, that's like 15 minutes of just like non-stop awesome shit happening. It's really good. It's high B. I gave it a 7, so. Alright. Toy Story 3, everybody. Are you ready? This is going to be like the biggest hot take of all time. Okay? Just prepare yourself, okay? C tier. Toy Story 3 is C tier. Okay? Toy Story 3 is C tier. It's not the worst Toy Story. We'll get to that. Okay. Okay, let me explain. So, the misunderstanding between Woody and the other toys in the beginning, right? It's so contrived. I hate when chance decides the fate of these characters in this particular instance. So the fact that Andy decided to help his sister in that moment when they're like packing all this stuff. Not only that, but the attic ladder deciding to tip over all the toys in the garbage. So not only that, Andy's mom comes around the corner, right? She thinks it's a garbage bag, and Woody is the only one to see that. And he knows the truth. That's worse than some of the 90s films in terms of incorporating coincidence into its plot, into the main. Here's the thing: it's the main conflict of the film. They wouldn't have gotten to Sunnyside if not for that. Okay, they can go to Sunnyside. I'm not saying that. I'm saying there are so many other better ways for them to get to Sunnyside than that. That was really the best you could come up with. I think there was at least dozens of other ways that could have happened, instead of just it feeling so juvenile. And I'm aware that other things happen in this movie. Most of them are very good. Okay, I like that. Okay, here's the thing. I like that the gang bands together for a prison escape. That's really cool. I like that. That's probably the best part of the film. Easily, it makes it feel like this climax because everyone's getting involved. That's great. I like that. That's easily the strongest part of this film for me. It's just, at its worst, it's reaching and it's obvious. It's so obvious and contrived. So take the ending, for example. Okay, I'm going to go there. I'm going to talk about the ending. I'm going to criticize the ending. Excuse me. Okay. So Andy gives his toys to Bonnie. All right, makes sense. Andy explains the role of each toy. Still with you? It could have even gone as far as him hesitate handing over Woody because he has this huge personal connection to him. He's the one who chose Woody to go to college. Okay, he's taking Woody to college. That makes sense. But as soon as he starts playing with her, it's like, okay, you had something, but then you kept going, right? Until my suspension of disbelief can't take any more blows tonight. And it's not even that hard to believe. It's just the way it escalates is so cheap in that ultra-specific Disney way. I'm not even the first person to point that out. It's not like breaking news or anything, but that is how I feel, okay? I think every film above it is better than it, so. Obviously, nostalgia is a huge factor in this film as well. Nostalgia is fleeting. That's the thing. I don't really think it makes the art any better, in my opinion. No, I prefer the first two. Oh, obviously it tugs at your heartstrings a lot as well. I didn't even mention the garbage disposal thing. That scene, which I felt a little bit. I'm gonna pretend I'm like this stone wall that cannot be moved by this children's story. I have a lot of personal connection with these characters. I really do care about these characters, as seen in this very tier list. But I don't know. It's just a teensy weensy bit overrated, in my opinion. All right, Cars. Cars is a bad idea for a movie in general. I do not like Cars. It's not a movie or a franchise that should exist, and that's my main issue, okay? It can exist, and it does, but I'm not glad that it does. You can try to humanize Cars if you want, but they're these stiff machines that look very weird when given eyes and mouth. I'm not saying don't try. This is a film where they tried to humanize Cars. That's admirable in today's day and age. I'm sure it was a challenge to make this, but it didn't result in anything good. It's my main issue. I'd say this one has the most heart. That's the thing. I think it is the best Cars film because it has the most heart. It's still in that relative area of streak, that Pixar streak. People didn't really hate this film or anything when it came out. It is obviously lesser, but it's, people still found it good overall, and I see why. It's the one I'm most fond of. It's the first movie I ever watched in a theater. Obviously, I don't remember that experience, but I had it on DVD. I would play the shit out of it. Not gonna lie. But man, I hate looking at Lightning McQueen's lips in this film. Like, once you notice how strange it looks, it's very hard to look away. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it is a strange thing. Almost as strange as This Strange World. In theaters now. A Bug's Life. Where in the D tier do I place Bug's Life? Okay. Worse than Cars. Still better than Frozen. I gotta give all these films credit. They're better than Frozen. I'm struggling to remember what even happens in A Bug's Life right now. Does anything happen? Obviously, stuff happens. It's not 90 minutes for nothing, but I know, like, the basic beats, but it's so underwhelming that it's basically mush. Like, the entire conflict occurs due to happenstance, and this time none of the characters are even remotely likable or memorable, so it's a lose-lose. It helps a lot. It really does help. Make this one of the undeniable classics of Pixar. Boom. Pranked. Snow White. Where you at, girl? Where you at? I'm gonna say better than Toy Story 3. It is better than Toy Story 3. Okay. I'm not gonna go ham over this film. I'm not gonna go actually. None of that. It deserves the world. It deserves everything it's gotten. Because it did something no other animated film has. I'm glad it exists so much. Plenty of positives. There are plenty of positives in this film. For one thing, the songs are neat. I like the songs. Hi Ho, which you don't want to say in the club. Hi Ho and Whistle While You Work remain jams. I still think the banter between the dwarves is still pretty funny. You get like a chuckle here and there. It's nice. I like how it starts. I like how distinct the movement of the characters is, because it's like the first time they ever tried rotoscoping and whatnot. All these squiggles are very distinct. It's not something you see in Pinocchio or Bambi or anything afterwards, really. It's trying to tackle a really realistic style at first, and I really do think it's going somewhere. Also, the stuff in the forest is just iconically it's just such a weird tone shift, and I love it. The villain is intimidating, albeit forgotten for about half the film. They only come in at the beginning and the end, which is fine. So with all those positives in mind, it's still a C-tier movie. It's a classic example of a film where nothing really happens. Still a better lounge film than Lady and the Tramp. I didn't even really capture my feelings on Lady and the Tramp properly. It is bereft of anything besides the spaghetti. Okay, even all these films, they don't have spaghetti, so that's a plus. I would still rather watch Snow White than Toy Story 3. And that's just a theory. A Dumbo theory. Right where it needs to be. It's better than Zootopia. Okay, you know what Snow White doesn't have? I'll tell you what Snow White doesn't have. It doesn't have pink elephants. Okay? It doesn't have Baby Mine, one of the best freaking early Disney songs. It also doesn't have blatant racism. Yeah. This hits hardest in the "this should not exist" category. In that, I'm talking about examples of racism in early Disney, by the way. So, yes. It's the worst. It's the worst offender for me. in my opinion, because the workers singing on near the railroad, the lyrics of that song are just the worst. Undeniably the worst. It's bad. This is also very concise, though. I gotta give it credit. It's only an hour long. It's probably the shortest film on this list. Besides this fucking piece of... It's the shortest film on this list, besides Winnie the Pooh 2011, I think. So it's like the length of an... It's basically an episode of a TV show, if you really think about it. It's very easy to put it on and just watch it all the way through. You know, it doesn't waste any time. It wastes no time at all. That's a positive for me, okay? I like Dumbo overall. I just think, you know, the obvious. Alright, Fantasia. I have never grown up with this film, but I loved it. I didn't grow up with it, but it's a prime example of animation as an art form. You know, you gotta take it seriously, all that. It's crazy. This was just a couple years after Snow White. Like, today, this still looks wonderful. Most of the segments are top-notch. The only segment I didn't like were the centaurs. The Roman gods or Greek gods or whatever. It was boring as sin. I don't like it. I had no interest whatsoever in that scene. Speaking of which, this film... There's an edited version of this film where, you know, the Black Centaur is edited out. I think it was in the 80s that was released. Here's the thing. The message in all the other racist Disney films, you know, we're gonna include it because we would like to denote why this is bad and we should stop. Here's the thing. That message was in Fantasia as well, so I expected the unedited version to be on there. But no, the edited version is on Disney Plus. It's so strange. Like, why is the... Anyway. Why is the... No, seriously, why is the message that you're going to acknowledge the sins of your past if the edited version is on Disney Plus? This is the only film where I realized, oh damn, Disney is a corporation. Nah, it doesn't really affect the art. It's just very strange, that's all. Obviously, Night on Bald Mountain and The Sorcerer's Apprentice are two of the best pieces of animation and music of all time. I had never watched the Dance of the Hours segment, the one with the hippos and the crocodiles, but that was a really standout moment as well. It's just so colorful and creative. Oh, there's baby sensory mode. No. Baby sensory YouTube videos, but in 1940s. No, it's art. I would not have liked the Rite of Spring as a kid, the dinosaurs segment. You know, I wouldn't have been able to appreciate, like, how dissonant that song is, or suite, or symphony, I should say. It really pairs well with the dinosaurs, their demise and stuff. The most common criticism is obviously the narrator. No, you could just say, like, the premise of the thing. You could just sum it up. You don't have to carefully go through it. And just... At one point, I was just skipping him. I was like, I don't want to hear your shit. I don't want to... I've had enough. But yeah, it's common courtesy, my guy. Like, don't spoil the film. Yeah, Fantasia's great. It's not going any higher than because I think it's great, but I don't, you know, I don't have an emotional connection with it as much as these stacked films. Sword in the Stone sucks. It's stinky. This film is actually broken from the inside out. Nothing about it works in the slightest. The only thing I even remotely remember is the part where the sorcerer is like, blow me to Bermuda, and he just like flies out of this building. It's a really strange moment that stuck out to me, you could say. But yes, please don't watch this film. It's bad. I'm trying to think. Is it better than? No, it's not as bad as that. It's not as... No. Definitely worse than Oliver and Company. It's rare to be that bad, but this film did it. With ease. Fantasia 2000. I liked it. Not as much as this film, obviously, but I liked it. I'm gonna put it underneath 101 Dalmatians. Yeah, that seems fair. Yeah, lots of different art styles, this one. It keeps it fresh. But the attempts at humor during the narrator segments are some of the cringiest I've ever seen. As much as I hate the other narrator, at least he was all stoic and serious. Like, that fit the tone of the film. It helps sell... More importantly, it helped sell the film as an event that you should actually pay attention to. This one is just dumb and bad. Yeah, it's very much looking down on, you know, the viewer and being like, oh, don't worry, it's not too boring, right? We're gonna... Yeah. I respect this one more overall than this one. And don't get me wrong, there are some segments on this one that are absolutely stunning. I'm trying to think of what they're called, actually, but, you know, the Firebird, I think, right? The last one. The one in Harlem, the one set in Harlem, that one... So stylish, so amazing. There's another one I'm thinking about. Donald Duck is an Ark person? Noah's Ark? LOL. Share this with your friends. Yeah, that one was kind of the worst. Alright, finally, Winnie the Pooh. Bottom of C tier. Close to D, but not quite. It's easily the worst 5 out of 10 film here. So... This film's trailer lied to me. I'm going to explain. Look up the trailer with Keen. Look at the one that uses Somewhere Only We Know by Keen. And picture me as a kid pogging to High Heaven. Okay, I love that song. I must have played it. I must have played this trailer dozens of times. Okay? I love the song. I love the visuals. I expected something grand and like something fitting of that, you know, that trailer. You know, that trailer is amazing. So it got me to ask my mom, like, aggressively to see it. I was like, once every weekend, I would be like, "Yo, Mom, can we see Winnie the Pooh? I want to see Winnie the Pooh." She didn't know that it was because of the trailer. She thought it was. I was clearly not in the age range for this film. Winnie the Pooh, come on. It's for babies, it's for kids. These are the direct-to-DVD sequels you watched when you were like 5. Okay? So, eventually we saw it, and we were back home an hour later, because this film is like 50 minutes long. I swear to God. Okay? 50 minutes is not feature length. It's just not. It's technically, but you're really cutting corners there, okay? So, the characters... The main thing that's wrong with this film is that it's not an anthology like the original. It focuses on one thing and one thing only, and it just stretches it thin to the point where you just want it to be over. It's not strong enough on its own, is what I'm trying to say. So, basically the main thing is that the characters read the sign outside of Christopher Robin's house, and it says he's going to be back soon, but Owl, being the socially conscious liberal of the group, is like, he's actually been captured by a creature named Baxoon. So Baxoon, he misreads as Baxon, and there's a creature named the Baxon, and they're all afraid. So he's not. It's not true. So the entire time you're just waiting for Christopher Robin to be back soon. If you get my drift. It's just very predictable and safe. It's barely worth even putting on. Also, the songs for babies. Like, this did not need to be a musical at all. I'm considering putting it in the D tier after much deliberation. I'm going to keep it there for now, just because, you know, it's not all bad. The animation, the 2D department, God bless their hearts. This was the last thing that they ever did. It's really good. The movement's really good. The characters are consistent. It's not patronizing. It's not one of the worst animated films of 2011 or anything. It's just kind of meh. Mediocre. Big Hero 6... I'll say... It's mediocre, but I think it's better than Robin Hood. It's more basic than Robin Hood, but it doesn't recycle animation. Yeah, Big Hero 6 is easily the most forgettable, bland superhero film they could have made, and that's what hurts the most. The characters are all tropes. Like, very, very, very basic characters. Okay? They don't really get much time to shine because they're all basic. One of them's the emo girl. One of them's the bubbly friend of the group. Sorry, the bubbly girl of the group. One of them is the stoner / shaggy type who's just Robbie from Gravity Falls. They actually share the same voice actor. Look it up. And one of them is the black nerd. Ugh. I don't even remember half their names. I know the black nerd is Wasabi, because I think the line was, "I spill wasabi on my shirt one time." That's pretty hilarious. The stoner is named Fred. And at one point he's in his costume and he's like, "It's Fred time," and I'm like, shut up. Shut your mouth. The music in this film tries to be all like dubsteppy. There's a part where they just barely dodge a train, and the train horn like goes like it was digitally altered. Ugh. There's so many moments in this film that make me go, ugh. So many points. Like the bad twist villain, played by James Cromwell. I don't know why I know that fact, but I do. It's the worst. No, it's not Hans. It's not Zootopia. That's the thing. You can have the worst twist villain, but still be a better film. This one's just very basic and middle of the road. But the main conflict is competent enough. I think it starts off as a 6. Like, just watch the opening scene and be like, oh my god, this film's gonna be better than I remembered. It's gonna be a 6. No, it just kind of devolves from there, and it's not bad. It's not unwatchable. It's just middle of the road. And obviously, you know, the visuals are pretty cool. Alright, Moana. Moana is going in the B tier. I think it's actually better than... Wait, is it? Because these are both Musker and Clements, so... No, actually, Great Mouse Detective's better. It has a better villain, and it has a better ending. Yeah, Great Mouse Detective's better. Moana is just as good, though. I really enjoyed Moana upon rewatch. It's a really solid work overall. It's this tried and true formula. Someone wants to go somewhere and be somebody, whatever. But no, it really works. It's one of the best modern Disney soundtracks, for sure. Like, it's stacked. This thing is stacked. It's really funny at points, too. The whole sequence with the water placing Moana back onto the boat and throwing the gem back at Maui at one point, it's so good. It's so funny. It actually did make me, like, laugh out loud. That's really rare. Yeah, it does a lot of things right. I think it does more than... Even, like, the funny sidekicks, they aren't that distracting. Like, the things people, like, complain about, like the chicken or the pig or whatever, they're fine. They don't really hinder the experience or the enjoyment. Yeah, I would gladly rewatch this. Right this second. I love the dynamic between the two leads on the poster here. Moana and Maui. I love Tamatoa, his whole sequence. Jermaine Clement. And Tamatoa, his voice is so iconic. I love it. There's so many positives about this film. You know, it stands out more, but I don't care. Great Mouse Detective, still more iconic because of its villain. Because yeah, the villain in this film is easily the major thing going against it for me. It's just a giant monster, really. That's really, yeah, just the action scenes are in that part. It's very basic. It leads to the all is lost moment and all that. The water itself had more personality, ironically, than the actual villain. But yeah, apart from that, I really enjoyed this film. I think it's better than all these, so hell yeah. Ralph Breaks the Internet, oh my god. Oh my god. No, actually, we'll put it right there. That's about fair. Oh my god. Okay, this film was not as much of a disaster as I thought it would be. Like, it does a lot of things wrong, but... Okay, it's a disaster, right? But not as much as I was hoping. Okay, I didn't want this film to be bad or anything, but I knew it was going to be. I knew, from what I've heard, it's just... ass. It's like this corporate, soulless wasteland. But honestly, that makes it really distinct, in my opinion. It makes it more distinct than any of these. Like, it's fascinating. It's a fascinating sequel. In all the wrong ways, of course. But it's something else. It's really something else. It's one of those films that gets nearly everything wrong. But I could get through it really quickly. Like, other films, I would get really bored at one point and just kind of surf, like, Instagram or something. And then I would go back, like, 20 minutes later and be like, yeah, I have a film to watch. I actually have a film to watch. But no, not here. Not here. I only did that maybe once in the middle. But no, I just... It constantly breaks its own rules about going turbo and all that from the first film. It made it excruciatingly important that you should not go turbo. It's not recommended. But it's not something I noticed while watching. It didn't impede the actual experience until I thought about it later, of course. And then I was like, no, that made no sense. It fails as a sequel. It's so... But it's fascinatingly bad. I'm not saying it's good by any means, but please watch this if you just want to ogle at something. It boggles my mind. That's the phrase I was looking for. Oh my god. It's also another film that doesn't understand how going viral works. Like, all these videos pop up on people's feeds of Ralph from the video game in the arcade, and they're all, it's so poorly handled. You'll know what I'm talking about when you see it. John C. Reilly's performance as Ralph is also noticeably worse. He's constantly whining. He never really did that in the first film. He was grounded. He only did that in the most extreme situations where he felt his life was in danger, right? It's a completely different character than what I remember. Fix-It Felix and Jane Lynch are barely in this film. It's all sorts of bad, but I'm not gonna make excuses for it. It's a certain kind of bad that's very rare, and that really stuck out to me. Okay, I'm back in action like Looney Tunes. I'm back in action like Looney Tunes, that's right. Alright, Encanto. Let me see, it's definitely C tier. It was a B tier when I first watched it, but... It's just... I just watched it, like, maybe a week ago, so... Anything I say right now will be... Like, I would have to rewatch it again, I think. I think that's the perfect spot, actually. Like, I'm fond of Wreck-It Ralph more than this film, so... But yeah, really enjoyable overall. Better than Zootopia, who shares a co-director, I believe. I can't say it's better than any of these yet, but that may happen. I would say the songs are what I take most issue with. A couple of them are really good, but specifically the rap verses with so many syllables that you need subtitles to know what they're saying, they're talking about. Like, this isn't a logic song. This is exposition. I have to know what you're saying. Be concise. It's okay. It's not even like a big critique or anything. It's just something I had to do. It was my duty. And then Penelope von Schwitz comes out. You said duty. Lol. I really did enjoy this overall. I just have to give it more time in the oven. Okay? Very good. It's better than most recent Disney films, okay? Very noticeably better. Very noticeably better, so... Like, unlike Raya and The Last Dragon, are you serious? You're seriously going with this? It's better than... No, it's not distinct enough to be better than Ralph Breaks the Internet. Are you kidding? So nothing against Awkwafina, but she is a contender for the worst sidekick in Disney history. It's so hard to explain what she does. You'll know it when you see it. You'll know it when you hear it, but it takes her like 10 seconds longer than normal to finish the joke. Which none of them are funny to begin with, but it's hard to explain. Like, she clearly cannot sell whatever she's been given. It's obvious in the performance. Anyway, some really cool shots save this from being a total disaster. There's a cool action scene. But oh my god, the writing. Oh my god, apart from the main quest, nothing these characters do makes any sense whatsoever. Nothing they do. The script is broken, essentially. It's irreversibly bad. It's like, oh my god, this is the best you could come up with. And of course the characters are fine, but they're just there. Like, you have to have a character from every village or whatever, even if it's a baby ninja thing. I don't like. Me personally, I don't like ninja babies. Okay. I consider myself anti-ninja baby in my good old-fashioned film. I don't know, in my animated films and my animated media. Most of these films don't have a ninja baby in it, and some of them I really like. So maybe just try harder. Try harder. Cars 2. Mater spy movie is a bad idea on paper. Nothing more has to be said. Actually, it's better than Raya, so... And Ralph. Yeah, there we go. Yep, that's all I have to say about that. Damn, we are almost finished. Time to roast the hell out of some of these sequels, bro. It's gonna be a lot. So Brave. Brave is better than Bolt. But even there, it's like... Ugh. Some people really despise this film. It's not necessarily incompetent, and just very derivative. You've seen this movie a million times. It's the only Princess Pixar movie, and I don't think that's what they're best at. They're not really suited for that kind of thing. They could have, they tried, but, The major thing is the first half is clearly better than the second half. Very, very clearly better. Like, okay, it's going somewhere. I really like the three houses. I don't really know what to call them. The three teams, the archery scene and all that. The three... Like, it's fine. I like that stuff the best. I even like the scene with the witch a lot. The whole potion thing. I can accept witchcraft in this story because the witch character is really fun to watch, and so is her crow and all that. And the way it uses animation to its fullest potential, all the knives pointing at Merida when she first walks in or whatever. And then she walks out, it changes into this witch's cauldron type situation. It's really cool and creative. I like that. This actually shares a writer, or not shares. It's co-written by the dude who made Sam and Max, Steve Purcell, I believe. And you can really tell with this film. I think that's really distinct. More distinct than any of these, in my opinion. But then, oh no! Here's the thing. It's going... Up to that point, it's a 6. Up to that point. I'm really liking what I'm seeing so far. And then... Mama turned to bear to learn lesson. Turning into an animal to learn a lesson. About friendship and compassion. About motherly love. Brilliant. I don't want to be cynical and be all like, oh, it's never been done before, but from then onward, it's just so predictable and you tune out. It does have its moments here and there, but there are certain plot holes that actively took me out of the experience. The big one being no one sees the bear during the speech when it's shown that people are facing the bear. And also the king discovering because the bear transformation happened in their bedroom, the king and queen's bedroom, and he only discovers it the night after it happens. So where did he sleep? He certainly didn't stay up for 24 hours. It wouldn't make sense. It would be better if it took place in one day, in my opinion. I feel like, catching salmon at night, woohoo! Does that happen? I'd have to look it up. It sounds dumb, but yeah, Brave's just kind of... It's right next to Toy Story 3, isn't that really jarring? I know. That's how I feel, though. Alright. Monsters University. It's a better sequel than Toy Story 3. I'm sorry. It's more generic than Toy Story 3. It doesn't have the highs of Toy Story 3. But it's a better sequel, in my opinion. I love binging all this stuff and finding the really good film buried beneath it, buried in between it. Okay? Still a C-tier movie, though. But I found it really good. You'd be surprised at how much they gave a shit in this film compared to other, sequels. Obviously, the animation's a major upgrade. Even if the designs of the new monsters are very bad. Very unflattering, actually. I don't like them. But I don't know how they did it, though. I don't know how they pulled it off. During the last trial or whatever, because this takes place during Fry Cook Games or whatever, Olympic Games, I was on the edge of my freaking seat. I was on the edge of my seat. I wanted them. I didn't think they could succeed. I was rooting for them. Plus, there were some really emotional moments. There's one that you're most likely familiar with in regards to Monster University. And yeah, those really add a lot to Mike Wazowski's character. There's more to it than I realized, and that's good. I think it's admirable, even if it's not something that had to exist necessarily. I no one was asking for this, but they made it, and they tried. Oh my god, I just forgot. I forgot to mention the sound design in some of these films. Okay, so in most of the old films, crucial sound effects just aren't there. It's a lot of empty footsteps or whatever, just really the lines and the major, if someone shatters a glass, that'll be there, but for some of these new films, it's somehow even worse, where okay, you'll have the lines themselves, and then some of the screams or some of the yelps of the characters are recycled from the old film. So Mike scream and Sully scream in this. If I hear Jesse's yeehaw one more time in Toy Story 3 and Toy Story 4, I think they even do it a couple times, I'm gonna that's the worst one. That's the worst one. You can hear what I'm talking about in your head. That's how ubiquitous it is with Jesse's character. Yeah, that was kind of a tangent, but oh my god, try harder, please. Some of these sequel writers, I don't know. Okay, I think that's everything I've had to say about this masterpiece, according to me. Inside Out is a B-tier movie. I liked it. In many respects, it doesn't work, but a shit was clearly given in regards to this film. A level of effort rarely seen by the studio anymore. You know, Pete Docter knows his shit when it comes to these films. He knows what's good for Pixar. I think it succeeds most in the little things. It'll make you ask questions like, why is a gum commercial stuck in my head all of a sudden? How does that work in this universe? What if your dreams were a movie set? You know? Stuff like that I think is really creative. I also want to shout out the SNL cast members, obviously. They did a great job, all of them. Especially Amy Poehler as Joy. I think that's a really standout performance. It's really perfect casting because Amy Poehler, I haven't seen like Parks and Rec and all that, but she's just the master of like pretending everything's fine when it clearly isn't. You know, there's a lot of moments in this film where she really shines. The only major issues I have with this film is how the humans act unnaturally, you know? Like Riley, it's been kind of ragged on that Riley's just this blank slate, and it's kind of unnatural seeing her react in such ways, or whatever. Like, she doesn't feel like a character, if that makes sense. And I get like, you know, it's a pivotal time to be having such extreme feelings. You know, she's moving, that's fine. That makes sense. I'm just saying, like, even the other characters, like the parents, they have their own things, their own emotions in their heads. It's one of those things where if you took out the scenes showing the characters inside their heads, it would not make sense. It would be very unnatural. And, you know, the pacing of the film is like, it spends maybe 15 to 20 seconds inside their heads before they make another response. So you're just kind of like filling in the blanks, like, okay, are they saying anything to each other in that time span or not? Probably not, but it just feels like it does. As a viewer, I don't know. So yeah, very clearly better than anything in C tier. Oh yeah, and sadness in the beginning of this film is very infuriating, I'm sorry. You know, the way she touches the memories in the beginning, like, why are you touching the memories? Why are you touching them? Why are you making them sad? There's no reason for her to do that. It's something I didn't like then, and not something I like now, so it's a very... most of the common complaints in this stream have just been, like, the way the conflict happens. Like, I feel like most of these films down here don't really do a good job of that. Like, if you can make it seem natural, it's a godsend, okay? And most of these films up here have no problem doing that because they're good stories. Okay, let's see. At this point, I wanted to see what Turning Red had to offer, and I was really surprised. I want to put it, like... I was considering giving this A tier. That's how good this film is at certain points. Who knows, on rewatch, it might actually go there. It might actually be up here. Or at least up here. Like on par with Up or something. But right now, you know, I'm going to hold back because it's new and everything. But yeah, the way everything wraps up towards the end is so... It's so worthy of praise, it's ridiculous. There's so many clever little moments throughout. I could tell this was semi-biographical... Sorry, semi-autobiographical. Like, I could tell Domi Shi, I believe, that's how you pronounce it. I could tell because they were around this age, around 2002 or whatever this film takes place. It really feels like there's all these little moments, all these little details that really add to its convincing, is what I'm trying to say. It's such a work of passion. You can really tell Domi Shi's like all over this film. It's really like an auteur situation. It's not like the most original concept or anything. But it does things that are new for Pixar. It does. I had no idea that they were going to use actual pads, like in the actual. it's for one moment, but oh my god, I thought it was just gonna be a metaphor and all that because the title and everything, but more often than not, I'm just surprised in a really good way of this film. It's very, very good, very good. Oh my god, Did It on My Own by Phineas and whatever. That shit is catchy as hell. I've been listening to that a lot lately. The only thing going against it right now is the extreme facial expressions at points. It's not even that big a deal, right? But when it does happen, it's like, oh my god, I didn't like that. I can point to that and be like, no. And I'm not gonna be like TikTok, because even if TikTok never existed, it would still be a problem in this film. The extreme close-ups. It's just never been like my style of humor. Like, oh, the cat is so cute, I'm gonna die of cute overload. I'm not really into that. It's not my thing, really. It's not for me. Like everything else. Wait, what is this? I appreciate that the mom wasn't one note either. She didn't stay that way for the entire film. It tackles generational trauma and all that, and I like that. Yeah, so I'm gonna put it in B tier for now, but not any higher. All right, here we go. Look at all these sequels. First one's Finding Dory. It's going in the no, it's going to the top of D tier. It's just okay. So obviously the original felt more like a journey. They travel the entire ocean. Marlin travels the entire ocean for his son. That's worthy of like being feature length. I don't know. It's such a giant leap from traveling the entire ocean for your son and going to an aquarium to find your parents. Like they're basically the same, but not really. It just feels more gigantic. It feels more impactful in Finding Nemo. Okay? So, okay. The conflict in here, I was just complaining about, how to get into conflict and all that just a couple minutes ago. The way that this film decides to tackle conflict, like the main source of conflict is, get ready for this. Marlin says something mean to Dory, so Dory is angry or sad. She floats up. She floats upwards and gets captured by these aquarium workers. And now Marlin and Nemo have to go rescue Dory from the aquarium. All the while reflecting on what the one mean thing he said. Yeah. It's just not strong enough of a reason to endure another mediocre Pixar sequel. I'm sorry. I also don't like any of the new characters. They're all basic and not funny. It tries really hard to be funny, but it's not funny. So, The Good Dinosaur, worst Pixar film. Is it F tier? No, it's not F tier. It's right about there, yeah. Proof that great backgrounds don't make a great movie. It's for toddlers. This movie is for toddlers. It's so... how do you make dinosaurs so lame? It's not that hard to make dinosaurs cool. I don't know. The two most extreme emotions I felt watching this was annoyance and boredom. It's aimless. It's really aimless. You really feel how aimless it is. It'll introduce new characters and dispose of them immediately. They're gone 10 minutes later. It's like, what was the point of even anything? That's all I have to say about that. Seriously, another film about, oh, I gotta get home. With nothing else. Nothing else. Cars 3 is the most boring Cars film. Cars 2 was at least... Listen, that film was boring, but it was noteworthy. It was noteworthy in how bad it was. It ended the streak for most people. That's noteworthy. This is nothing. This is actual nothing. Where would I put Cars Yeah, right under A Bug's Life. That's perfect. I would watch it more than Frozen. I can't believe I actually sat down and watched Cars 3 of all films when I could have done anything else. Cruz is so annoying, the yellow car. I understand there's more to her character than what's shown at first, but even if she was expertly written, this is still the most boring Cars film. I wanted it to be over about halfway through. That's how boring it was. Coco. I really love Coco. I am such a big fan of Coco. It is easily the strongest. Is that true? Yeah. With Turning Red, this is like their strongest film in recent memory. It's really good throughout. I wanted to put it in A tier, but the twist villain in this film is so bad. Oh my god, this is the worst example of a twist villain. I'm sorry, Zootopia. I'm sorry I ever doubted you, but you were not at this level. It's basically, I'll kidnap 1,000 children before I let this company die, times 1,000. It is so painfully... It's been done before. 1,000,000 times. It's embarrassing to watch. But the story and the characters and the writing are all so strong throughout that it's hard for me to be really too mad at this film. That's really the only major thing going against it. I think it's on par with Up. Incredibles 2 is on the same general area as Finding Dory. Most of the problems with this story are likely due to the lack of time given, because Brad Bird cited 1 year less than average was spent on this film when it could have used more time in the oven. Even he admits that. So, you know, it has that Brad Bird look and feel. It's written and directed by him. Thank goodness. It's not... No one's really coming in to really change his vision or whatever. I like that. But, you know, the fact that there's no time skip or anything, it makes all the weird decisions that much more noticeable while you're watching it, you know? I'm really not a fan of that trope now where characters sound 20 years older, clearly. I think that's one of the most common criticisms. I hate the new designs of these supers. They're so basic. Oh my god. They're not even created for, like, Disney, you know? Disney usually, like, as much as they half-ass stuff, like, the designs in this film were better. Unironically. What am I trying to say? What else is there? There's Baby Jack Jack. That gets asses in seats, I guess. That's really the only reason. It's not a time skip. They didn't have to devote much time to writing a film, making a coherent story. There is one scene in this film that stands out to me in a really, really good way. It's the scene where Elastigirl saves the ambassador during the TV interview. Like, during the interview. And the dumb villain, you know, whatever, he cuts in. That's really... And then that's really, like, so much tension in that. That's like classic Incredibles for just a second, you know? The tension is there. It's so fast-paced too. She runs into the control room and everyone else is hypnotized. And then she's like, okay, I know what's up. I need to do something now. And she goes into the helicopter. It's so cool. It is so cool. It is a standout moment in this film. In all the right reasons. The only other thing I wrote here is Dash sounds like the kid from the Sponge Cake commercial. I think the DS games for jam sessions, I think it's called, or whatever. There was this Australian kid say, "Fucking sponge cake." That's what Dash sounds like in this film when he screams. Alright, Toy Story 4 stinks to high heaven. Remember when all the characters were involved in 3? It was a prison escape film. Everyone had to be involved because it felt like this natural conclusion to this. I'm not going to get into the ending or whatever, okay? I don't care that this I acknowledge this film was made for money Every film here was made for money, blah, blah, blah. And I acknowledge they wanted to, leave things off with, like, Bo Peep, obviously. But no, this is more of like an epilogue, if anything. It's just another adventure for these toys, and that's fine. But most of the original toys are just waiting in the RV the entire film. It's really Woody, Buzz, damn. Yeah, I really don't remember much, like, who is even involved in this story. I know who is involved in Toy Story 3. I know what happens in that film more than this. And I just watched this film like a week ago, and I'm probably going to forget everything about it, okay? Buzz listening to his voice box, whatever it says is dumb. Like, he lets the voice box in his thing guide him, which doesn't... It just comes out of nowhere, and it's contrived. It's forced as well. Kay and Peele are painfully unfunny in this film, which is a real shame, because they usually are. The hyper-realistic textures and lighting that's present in, like, the backgrounds of Good Dinosaur and whatnot, it's so distracting in this film. It actually does it takes away from the charm of the original films. I have to say. I'm not usually a stickler for that kind of thing, because it does look better than Toy Story 3 at points, but, like, Toy Story 3 was a very good middle ground between that. It looked modern enough, and it looked classic enough, if that makes sense. It was the best of both worlds, and obviously these films still look great, but they're very of their time, I would say, in a very charming way here and there. But yeah, it just takes away from the film for me, from the overall enjoyment. Yeah, that's really all I have to say about Toy Story 4. Actually, I would say they're worse than Frozen. I would watch Frozen again than watch this again. And it's better than Black Cauldron, at least. It's not embarrassing. Although the ending is embarrassing, let's be real. If you've seen the ending, you know what I'm talking about, so... Alright, onward. We only have a couple films left, guys. OMG. Onward, my favorite, Disney film. Let's see, it's better than Brother Bear. No, I'll give you credit. It's in the ballpark of, like, okay, it's bad, but it's not that bad. Say what you want about Chris Pratt, and believe me, I have. But the role fits him very well. It fits him more than freaking Mario. It fits him more than Garfield. Can't wait for those, by the way. This film stars a twink and a stink. Get your asses in the seats. This is a film where, like, actively, every situation that happens, you notice problems. Like, just the way they get into trouble in this film is so contrived. It's like, okay, the dad's lower half causes trouble with the fairies or whatever. It's not natural. It's just not a natural film. I don't... my god. I just remember the one-eyed goblin police officer in this film. You know, the one line they say where it's implied that they're... Dude, my voice is gone. Dude, when I saw this film, and I saw the one-eyed lesbian goblin say one line that could be edited out in other countries, I stood out of my chair. I proclaimed to the heavens, yes, finally, we are acknowledged by the corporation. Finally, my people. We have won this war, this culture war. We are important to Disney. We are... Yeah, a film with that level of arrogance is not going in C tier, that's for sure. Yeah, it belongs down here. I see what it was going for. I see what it was going for in like, combining fantasy elements with our actual world. But I don't know why it doesn't really do much. Oh god, the centaur, not the centaur, that's the police officer. I'm talking about whatever it is, the The restaurant owner, she's cringe. Most of this film is actual cringe. That's all I remember. I watched it a couple days ago. I'm forgetting it as we speak, and I'm supposed to talk about it on stream. Soul. I'll put it near Encanto. It's a 7. It's a B tier movie when you first watch it, right? But I hate the ending so much. I hate the ending. It tries to have it both ways. If you're gonna go the sacrifice route, then just have him sacrifice himself. It would have just been much better. That's not the only thing, though. It's just the more you think about it, the more you're like, okay, I see what you're going for. The more problems you notice, you know, it's one of those films. I didn't have that for Turning Red. I didn't have that for even these 3 films. I'm out of ideas, bro. Soul, oh my god. It looks nice. It looks really nice. It's better than Zootopia, but that's all I can really say, okay? It's yet another film where the first black lead and blah 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 has to turn into a blob in order to learn a lesson. Or an animal to learn a lesson. It's like, yeah, I see what you're doing. It doesn't take an expert to notice that kind of thing, but it's very apparent. I appreciate the arc of the character, the main character. He's very selfish. He's very selfish in this film. I just think the rules that they introduce, it's too fantastical or something. Luca is basic as hell. Luca is basic. I understand what they're going for, and it's more watchable than, say... It's more watchable than Big Hero 6. It has more going for it. But the execution's just a little bit off for me. Like, okay, this film has a very generic bully character, right? It is the most generic bully character in all of media, I swear to God. So he starts targeting these 2 kids who just happen to be sea monsters, even though he doesn't know that. But, you know, the audience knows that, so of course he's targeting them for that reason that we know. But, you know, in the story, it doesn't make any fucking sense. He's like, you don't belong here in my town. It's like, can you give me another reason? Can you give me a reason that you think that and not I think that? Because I know why they don't belong here. I'm watching the film. He singles them out for whatever reason. You got to give me more of a reason than, oh, Luca tosses a ball onto his Vespa and kind of tips it over. Like, that's the entire inciting incident between these 2 characters. There's nothing else. The whole thing just feels so generic in retrospect. Like, while you're watching it, you're like, okay, that's fine. You can get through it easily. There are some really cool moments. Not even really cool moments, just very cute moments. It's a cute film. It's cutesy. I would say there are moments in Treasure Planet that are more impactful than this film. Big Hero 6, as basic as it was, sorry. No, it looks better. It looks better than this film. I love Italy. I love the look of it all, and they did a good job replicating that. San Francisco is just not a good name for anything, not a good setting. Last film, folks. Last film. Last one. Where's it going? Is it going in S tier where it truly belongs? Because it's one of the best action movies ever. Fuck this movie. Fuck this movie. This movie is nothing. This movie is artless. It's soulless. Soulless. Get it? This movie sucks. This movie looks like ass. This movie looks more ass than The Good Dinosaur. At least the contrast there between the silly cartoon animals and the hyper-realistic environments is distinct. This is nothing. You're saying nothing. You're doing nothing. You know those moments in Toy Story where he's like, "You're mocking me, aren't you?" Those are actually quotes from this film. Yeah, the toy actually had no personality. They actually It's from the film, guys. It's from the film that Andy saw when he was a kid. It's a film that made him go and buy a toy. If I'm to believe that, you're crazy. This film is so boring. How could any kid, how could any child Want a toy of Chris? What is his fucking name? Chris something. That version of Buzz. Tim Allen is a much better voice actor, infinitely better. I'm not a big fan of Tim Allen in general, but he's a better voice actor of Buzz. He fits Buzz more than whoever Chris. I want to say Chris Pratt so badly, but it's not him. I know it's not him. Chris Pines? I think it's Chris Pine, actually. Chris Pines. Anyways, that's the tier list, everybody. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Yeah, it's just zoomed out enough for the poo-poo. Read it and weep, losers. That's my Disney tier list. I'm just taking one last look just to see if I missed anything or if anything seems out of place. Okay, that checks out. I think I'm done here.